Okay, welcome guys. Welcome to part 5 of the learn do the game in Rust race. Excuse me. So today we are going to continue from where we stopped yesterday. So yesterday I had to abruptly end the implementation we were working with. So and that costs so we couldn't complete whatever we intended to or whatever we set out to do yesterday. So that was more like so that was a bummer. So but today we proceed with our intention yesterday, which was to implement the menu, right? Implement a game and see how much we can do something. So today is going to be more of that. And so basically it's going to be we continue from where we stopped yesterday, which was implementing the Bevy menu, right? And showing how the menu works. So basically, excuse me. Okay, I think we're back. Sorry about the break. I had a bit of network issue. I needed to resolve that as soon as possible. Whew. Okay, so back to what I was explaining. So this was what we did yesterday. Am I sharing my screen? No, I'm not. So this is what we did in part 4 of the series. We implemented this game menu, right, which was our consistent implementation from yesterday. And then I showed you guys how this was done, but we didn't do a bit of breakdown because I said we wanted us to work like intentionally to work on these things and show how to actually make it work by creating a game. So we didn't want to dwell much on the explanations and all of those things, just to implement this and show you how this is actually being done. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So we had the file yesterday, but I'll just go ahead and copy it again. There's a lot of file, like what we saw yesterday is a lot. It's about 200, if I'm not mistaken, lines of code. And so it's quite much, 700 actually. It's a bit of code, but then it's something we can read through and understand. It's not something far-fetched. So if I run this, okay, I need to set this as public. So if I run this game, we are going to get the same thing we got yesterday, or we do not have some of what is game plugin. Where is this coming from? Oh no, sorry about that. So I want to run this, which is the menu itself. So let me try running this. I think I have this, that's why it's complaining. And this has a bit of, I'm going to add this. Okay, so yes, this is what we did yesterday. Let me run this. Check my main.rs menu example domain, which is this. Why do I keep having errors? It's coming from another one, right? Ah, yes. What did I change the other time? Let's see. Okay, so sorry about this. I just needed to fix this. So this coming from here, it's public, so it should be accessible from mode. And considering why is it called mode? That's just wrong. So I'm trying to debug this, right? So we can just move on from here. There's a bit of issues here. The import is wrong. This is just wrong. Game. This is game. Does he have a junk logger? Okay, so let's assume this is fine and we don't have any other errors. Oh no, still another error. What else? What else do I need to fix? So there's still much errors there. Here, for instance, this game state. So game state is coming from menu, for crying out loud. What are you doing? Wow, sheesh. And this is coming from here. Okay. So this is an example that oh yeah, this is not being done. Jeez. Oh, this has a lot of errors. Oh no. No. Okay, that should clear the errors. We should be done. Should be good to go. Why? What did you do? Okay, not doing this manually. Just going to what I had before, fix this, then mark book fix this. Okay, so some weird reason should not be having that error, but for some weird reason I keep still having the errors, which is super weird. Where's my run button? Okay, it's not running yet, which is understandable. Okay, so I'm making this mistake again. My screen is not being shared. What is happening? Really? Not today of all days. Oh, finally. Screen is back. And game state exists. Why is it returning this error for every single thing I'm working on here? What's the issue here? It works for levels, works for every other thing. I'm trying to work for them. Is there something I'm not doing? Should be fine. Oh my god. Okay, so this is one of the things that happen when you are rebuilding stuffs. It's gonna be so annoying right now because this is fine. Like this is literally the same line code, add system to this, and this doesn't work. This works, but this is refusing to work. Literally the same thing. Game states playing, which I'm getting from here. So this is not part of what we're trying to do today. This is just what I was trying to like work on myself. But there's been errors, yes, which I had to like on comments because I didn't want to run this because I was not done with it. But so far, this has been problematic, like extremely problematic. So yes, it's part of those things. I think I just wanted to show you guys this so you understand what has been happening here. So we don't have this. Why this even here? I feel like this is not registering my changes. Is it? So why is this? Something is clearly wrong here. If I want to center the text, it is right. Okay, I don't need this. It's not even registering my comments. Okay, I need to restart this. Sorry guys, I need to restart this. Something is clearly wrong. Okay. Oh, finally. I knew something was wrong. Oh, jeez. It wasn't saving my changes. So shitty. Exactly. It just made me feel like, oh my god, things I was working on was not working. Okay, yeah. So that was quite terrible. So now let's run the menu example that we did yesterday. Oh my god, still has errors. What's the error? Yeah, single here. No. Which is this? Get me this. Yep, which is correct. Oh no, this is going to be an issue. Slice is not defined on this. Mhm. That was clearly what I did before. Stop bringing me back to this. No, this is when passing this to it. It's I-32. You're the first parameter for me. No. This is typical debugging scenario right now. Oh, we spent 19 minutes. I was just trying to show you guys what's up here, but okay, I'm trying to do some. I don't think AI can help me fix this. All right, so I could probably just comment this out, but I just want us to clear this because it's not something we are using much, yeah, but this is something we can eventually. Why is my screen going off? This is super annoying today. So sorry about this, guys. I keep having this glitch with my screen getting displayed and going off on its. It's literally very very annoying. Sorry. Okay, so I'm just going to comment this out because I can't fix this yet. This and AI is not really helping me right now. So I'll get back to you when it's available. So for now, this should be fine. I should be able to run the program. Okay, so this was what we had yesterday, and if you could remember, we proceeded from here. I'm so sorry about my screen just misbehaving today. I really don't understand what's up. All right. So yes, this is where we had yesterday, and remember that from this implementation we had this. That when we click on this, it goes here, and then it goes back after 5 seconds, and then comes in again, and we can go to the settings and display all of this. And this is the state is being maintained. And I explained some of this yesterday, literally by making some changes. So I'm just going to leave the one I'm about to use here, without using the other ones. So what we're trying to do today is a bit simple, not too crazy, not too out of place. So from here, going back to the examples we had, right? We had some of the examples like this that also allows you to be able to implement something like this observer. Now, this observer we had yesterday, such that we could click a any of the gizmo that was available on screen, and by clicking one of the gizmo, the other ones kind of like get despawned automatically. More like this, they get hidden, but the actual thing that is happening is they are being despawned out of view. So that is what happens in actual context. So in this case, this is what we are trying to implement, right? And I want us to do it in such a way that we have this menu added to this, right? So today is going to be a bit of more. We're going to take another approach today because we already understand this. It's not fun to be writing this manually. To just get a bit boring. So what I'm going to do is we want to try vibe coding some of this. We're going to try to vibe code it. Means that we use AI to write some of the implementations, but all at once. We take it progressively, see the changes, take it progressively, see changes. That's basically what I'm trying to do. So what I want to do now is this observer should be triggered when you click this make new game. When you click new game, for instance, like this, instead of showing this, we'll be back to the menu shortly. It should show me this screen. This That's exactly what I wanted to do. So how do we do that? First of all, going back to this code base, we know that the menu is being displayed not in the splash, but in the actual game, right? So in this game here, we had a setup whereby we had the node and the children written, which is where you see this black display with the will be back shortly menu. You can see it down here. So the node is what is actually rendering all of those things. So in this case, we are creating menus, we are creating multiple, or let me say nested screens in this case. So but what we are trying to do is basic. I want to implement that by adding something called the renderer, no observer. So I'll just call this observer basically. So the observer is going to be doing one thing. It's going to be this same code copied here, just the same way, right? Because we want to implement the same thing, literally the same thing. So we just do this in this case, copy this, yes, we want to add some of the crates because you notice that there were some crates being used, which we don't really have installed currently, like the Rand and the Rand Chacha. Yeah, it's a very funny name, but yes, it's there. So we add all of this and then we just click OK, and cargo.toml should have these two packages, and you can see this installed automatically by adding it. So it is there. So then that means if I run observer itself manually, so what is going to happen here? I'm going to call this pub so that I can show you guys what it means from the main, right? And then I'll go back here and comment this out, and I'll run just the observer and just this alone. So running the observer will give me this. This is what I want to do. So if I run this, or let me say we execute this program, or let me run this. So waiting for this to run. Why is it taking this much time? Okay, so once this is successfully compiled and then it runs, it's going to show me this observer implementation whereby I can click any of this just like this. I can click any of this, right? There are no assets here, so everything should display the same way, right? We don't need any external assets. So the reason why it's taking time here is because it's compiling the new packages. You can see more of those things added to it. And I also installed some of the other stuffs that let me go to cargo. I installed some of the other stuffs before now, right? But okay, that I don't think that that's very very important right now. But then we'll talk about that eventually. So let's display the observer and let me show you guys what this is. Come on, complete. Run. Okay, it's almost done. It's building the entire thing again. But then this is what we are going to get once we are done building. Okay. I have not too many things running today. Okay, so while we wait for this, yeah, we're not using most of this. I'm just going to comment this out. Yeah, I'm not using any of that. Sorry about that. A lot of things we are not using. I just added them. Okay, it's taking time. So while we wait, we understand what we are trying to do. When we click the new game like this, it should no longer show this, right? You can see it's displaying a new screen. More like it's navigating to a new screen by going here. Oh no, my phones are blasting up right now. And this is taking a while. Oh no. Okay. So I think I did a bit of clean up on my laptop today just to free up space. I think that's why this is now rebuilding. So it's not like the previous build has been cleared. That's why it's going through this new build setup. Shouldn't be rebuilding every single time as it's doing currently. But then, yeah, just assume this is just happening for now. Okay, so going back to observers, we understand what we are trying to do in this case, render this screen or load this screen into view. So for us to do that, we're going to take another approach. Like I said, we're going to be using AI to implement this setup, right? And that is what we require to do this. So first thing I'm going to do, let me pick the AI I want to use for this. Let me use Klein or Kilo Code. So I'm going to be using something that is available free, not something that is try to without any practically free usage because they're free, they're cheap to give it for free for you to use. And so one of the ones I use is I use Klein. It is available on any ID you use, whether VS Code or you're using JetBrains like I am, it's very available for you to use. All you need to do is create your account, and once your account is created, you log in successfully, you can use it. And they have free models you can use. Right? You will see tagged as free when you select any model from here. You will see it as free. So that's what I do use most of the time. I really don't have to pay for models to actually do most of the things I do. So I don't really pay for models until I'm working on a very complex stuff that I know that I need advanced stuff. So basically that's a cheat code I'm giving you guys. Another one you can use is Kilo Code. Kilo Code is actually very much popular. I use both of them, right? I use them interchangeably depending on the use case and depending on whether I'm not satisfied with the answer one is giving me. And that is why it's important to know what you're doing, because if you do not understand what it is you're doing, you just pick everything from AI. You can get misled, you can get buffed with unnecessary code which you don't need. And so if you have an idea of what you need, most times LLMs will give you wrong information. So you need to actually mm, simplify it yourself by saying, okay, no, do this, remove this, I don't want this. Why you doing it this way? Right? Basically. So we are going to be using that today to implement these two things. So what I'm going to do first of all is clear what I don't need. In this case, I need the menu and the observer. So I'm going to be using client first of all. And if it doesn't give me what I want, I go to queue. I'll say I want these two files. So before that, this is done building. Interestingly, I have two builds, which should not really happen. Then it happened. So if I click any of these, you can see it works similar to what I have on the browser itself, the example we saw here. So in this case, I want you to merge these two files. So there are two files. These are two files, two game scripts. Right, and let me plan first. So I'll say the first one, let me say menu example is a menu screen that renders a menu that allows you to start a new game, select, modify settings, and also quit the game. The new game doesn't actually do anything currently, so I want you to modify this to load in observer.rs when the new game is triggered. Can you implement this? And how will you implement this? So we are going to ask this question. So what first thing we're going to do is I'll ask the AI to so I'll ask the AI to implement this, right, based on this question I asked. I asked if it's able to do this, and yes, interestingly, it should be able to, right? In this case, it's just for you to check through the files and tell me, oh, no, I can't do this, or yes, I can do this. So this is the response. The user wants me to, let me collapse this so I'll get enough room space. The user wants me to modify this game so that when the new game is clicked, it loads the content from this instead of the current place of that game. Let me first understand what I'm working with. So this is a complete Bevy game with a menu system that has a splash screen, a menu with this, and this. So it already understands what is happening, even without telling it that when I click the menu, it shows a place with that game screen that shows settings for 5 seconds, which is exactly what we have, and which is what I showed you guys here, right? So in the game setting, when you click on it, it displays the black color first of all, renders that for 5 seconds, and then render the text on it, or render this whole node rather, the children for 5 seconds, which spawn for 5 seconds, and despawn when it is done. By going back to the game state, we are using the game state to modify the changes that happen. So in this case, he already understands that the game screen shows, okay, this is wrong, not the settings. The place of that game screen just shows, okay, yeah, it shows the settings for 5 seconds by showing what is already existing in the settings, right? That is what it shows us. So Okay, so second thing it says is there's the observer.rs. And observer.rs picks what does it do? It says a complete Bevy game also that demonstrates observers with a minefield where clicking the mines trigger explosions, and an observable pattern with handling events, a spatial index for efficient collision detection. The current flow in menu example is splash menu game back to menu, which is correct, right? Then the user wants splash menu observer game instead of placeholder, which is perfectly what I wanted to do. Now it says I need to understand how the current game system works in menu example of RS, understand the observer game structure, figure out how to integrate the observer game in the menu system, plan the implementation approach. So it's going to tell me how to do it. Now, this is important because you need to know if this is exactly what you want or not. Now, let's look at the plan and the structure. It says, I need to understand the structure of both plans. Yes. Now, let me examine this. So first thing you need was to read this, and then to read this, and then give me the situation analysis. It said, now I understand both files. So the first thing it's going to do is menu example contains the Bevy state with splash, menu, and game. When new game is clicked, it transitions to new game state.game, which was what I explained yesterday. So when new game is clicked, it transitions to this game, which is correct. Currently shows a placeholder screen for 5 seconds, which is correct. The game logic in the game module with a game plugin is the game logic, which is this. Where's that again? Okay, the game setup is the game module with a game plugin. We already have a game plugin here, which I showed you guys yesterday. This, right? We have this game plugin here. So it's simply saying that the game logic, which is why whatever happens in the game, which is switching the state, which is first thing is on enter, load the game screen, right? And run the game setup. And the game setup is basically this, where the spawn happens, right? So it says the game logic is in the game module with a game plugin. The observer structure is a standalone Bevy application with mines that explode when clicked. It uses observers for event-driven architecture, has its own main function, camera setup and spawning and all of those things. No state management, it runs continuously. Now, the implementation plan is simple. In this case, it is integrate the observer game by replacing the place with module with the observer game logic. Here's my detailed approach. Extract the observer game logic, remove the standalone main function from observers, convert the observer game into a plugin that can be added to the main app, move all the observer specific component system and resources to a module, modify the game module, replace the current game module in menu example with the observer game logic, adapt the observer system to work with the existing state system, ensure proper cleanup when transitioning back. Now, these are the steps it's going to take. The third step is handle state transitions, which means from game, instead of going to the placeholder, go to the observer. When it is done, return back to the menu, or whenever you click maybe like the escape key or something. It depends. Now, in this case, ensure this partial index is probably cleaned up. Add the way to return to the menu based on just what I just said here. Then the integration details, keep the existing game state, but replace its content, which means what it wants us to do now is replace all of this spawn that has to do with the game screen and the children. Instead of showing the children here, it's simply telling us to replace it with the content of the observer.rs. Now, ensure the observer system only runs when in game state, which is perfectly what we want it to do. We don't want it to keep running when it's not in the game. We don't want it to keep running when it is paused. In this case, when we are on the menu screen, we want it to be paused. Now, the key changes required, first of all, in observer.rs is to convert from standalone app to plugin, which is where the work is actually. The second thing is menu.rs replace the game module with observer logic, which what I just showed you guys just now, right? All of this. Then user experience, add a way to exit the game back to menu. Benefit of this approach maintained. So what I'm going to say is show me. Okay, two things can happen. I can actually tell you to do this, but there will be no way to manage if it misbehaves and goes off way. There will be no way to come back to the exist. In fact, you know what? Yes, let's tell you to do it. Show me how you want to. This is exactly how I would do it if I was the one. How you want to implement this. Because I want to see some of the code it's going to use. I just don't want to trust it blindly by telling it to just proceed. I want to see some of the code to see if it matches what I have in mind. Now, show me how you want to implement this because it will be faster. It can write literally everything in 2 minutes. And it's going to take us a while to do that. So, but it can be fast enough to do that without needing to do any stress. So in this case, the first thing is, it is saying the first one is transform observer into a plugin, which is the bulk of the work truly. So it's in the right direction. I will modify observer.rs to remove the main function and create a plugin function instead. And this is how it's going to do it. The new observer structure, which is this observer, is no longer going to be using this main that we have here. So it will run as a standalone application itself. It's going to be running with within the game or when it's on the game itself. So the new observer.rs structure contains Bevy platform collision disk, which we will get from here, but we have to import all of these things, right? So it says also remove the main. Like I said, we don't need all of this main. Totally remove this because we don't need any of it. So we are totally going to remove the main, keep all the existing components and system, but modify them slightly. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this out because we don't need the main. Like I said, it is not needed. So we are going to modify some things. We are going to leave the main because we need it for the modifications we want. The screen going off is super annoying right now. Okay, so we are going to use this as a way to track what is happening right now. Sorry about that. The screen keeps going on. So if you come in at any point in time and you notice that it's just for a while, it's not. I'm actually sharing, but it keeps going off. I don't know why that's happening today. So yes, let's proceed with what we are doing. So the first thing is the mine component remains unchanged. The explode mines and explode event remains unchanged. So that means we don't touch the mine component. We actually need that to track the position of the mine so we know if it is close to another one or not. So that is used to track because we kind of create like an index for all of them, all the mines, their position, then increase the size of the position. That's basically what we do. So we have like a padding. Imagine if you have like a circle, then you have like a padding around it that you give as a boundary. The boundary is maybe like 10, let's say the radius of your circle is 10 centimeters. And then you now want to determine if something is beside it. How do you do that? All you need to do is to add an offset position by adding extra padding. Let's say you add 2 extra centimeters so that whatever is within the scope of that 10 plus 2 centimeter is close to your circle. That's the way you can determine it. That's exactly what is happening here. So we need the mine's position and the size to know what is happening. So then we have the explode mines too, which we need to keep because we don't want to touch that. We need to track the mines that are going to explode, not the one that we are clicking. So we need that. The spatial index too needs to remain unchanged because we need to determine where it is within the context of the world itself, right? So then we have the setup. So we need to name the setup from game setup and remove the camera spawn because we don't want it to spawn as a camera. We want it to observe and to retain the camera view of the actual parent. In this case, this is now a parent-children relationship that we have. So we need to remove that setup. So the setup needs to be removed or modified. We need to change it to game setup. Now, this is one of the reasons why we are asking it what to do because we need to understand what is happening. So we need to remove these two things. We don't need the camera and we do not need, okay, I'm going to leave the text, but we don't need the camera. We don't need the camera, we don't need camera configuration. So rename to game setup and remove the camera spawn, which because it already exists in the parent itself. So all of that system remain mostly the same. If there's any other thing, we will allow the AI cleaner off for us. But currently we do not need to spawn the camera because it's not needed. We need to spawn every other thing. We need to spawn the mines. We need to track by, or let me say observe what is happening with the other mines that are going to explode and the other mines that are close to the original mines we click. So that's the first thing. So we've successfully done the first step. Now, AI is still going to do most of the work, but this is just to like understand what is happening behind the scenes. The second step is to replace the game module in menu example.rs. So we go back to the menu and replace the game module with this. So I'll completely replace the current game module, which is where we have the game setup. Which is this rather. So you know this game setup we have here, this game setup that we have here that we say we are going to replace with, I will just change the name. We are going to copy that and place into our original or let me say the parent screen or the parent view. So in this case, you can see that it's literally the same thing. We have the game setup here, which is the same thing we have here. That was why we renamed it, which is where we spawn the observer game elements. We have the command or spawn, which is the text. We are not removing that, like I said. The next thing is we have the handle game input, which is, where's that? Do we have that here? Oh, okay, yes, it has the let's RNG, which is up to this point, and literally everything remains the same. So we are not touching any of those things. And so the handle game input also comes in play. Let me see if we have that here. Handle game input, anything like that. Nope. Okay, so we don't have handle game input. So that's basically like maybe one of the things it's going to create or add for us. So yeah, so it's going to, I think it should be on menu example there. Handle game input. not. Okay, that's cool. So literally probably going to add that for us, right? So what it's saying now is I'll completely replace the current game module with whatever we have here. The current game module is the menu example.rs, and it contains the game plugin, which is everything we have here. The on game state game, the game setup, the whatever we have, the draw shapes and every other thing here. So the one on the observer, we do not have a game plugin, right? Because we are not using that there. But we do have all these other functions and we are going to make use of them. All the other functions too. All of them. So the game dot menu, we need to add some certain things to it, which you can see here. We are going to add the system. So in this case, we are going to need to change the implementation from, okay, we're not really changing the implementation. We have the game setup on the menu example. We're just going to change game setup here to what is coming from the observer generally. So we are not changing much here. You can see the only thing we did was change the name from game setup and comment out the camera. But in this case, we are doing that because we need to copy this. So that's exactly what it's saying. I will completely replace the game module with this. So it's going to completely replace that with this. And then it first copy the game setup, change it with the game setup. So I'm going to copy the entire thing here and change it with, you know what, I'm not going to change it directly because this is a module. So here is where we need to do all of those things happening here. So in the game module that we have here, in this game module rather, so it's going to need to implement all of those things. You can see the game system here already have game setup, which is what we have at the top here, which is what renders this color. So we are going to call this game setup code, and then I'll add a new game setup by copying that function directly from there. Of course, there are certain things that are not available, like the char rank is not available, which we need to, currently is complaining that it's not there, so we need to import it. And yeah, import from this. I don't think, do I import from core? Let's see how we did this here. Okay, I think we're correct. So we don't need to do that. So currently we don't have mine, right? We need, it's currently public, we need to private, we need to make it public, and we need to make some other thing public as well, so that we can access some of these things here. So if you go to this place, you realize that mine is public, right? The implementation is also public now. Initially it was private, so we couldn't access it. So I'm just trying to implement some of the things that it has done. It can always make changes when it is time to make changes, but then I'm trying to do this so we can see. So undo keyboard inputs, basically some of the things it's going to do. So I'll just copy this and put here. The reason I'm doing this is because sometimes I really trust the way AI tends to undo writing files to tend to like rewrite your state that you really don't want it to do, and that becomes a problem. So yeah, like this now, menu state doesn't exist anywhere, but why does it have menu state, right? So that is a problem already. So you know what, I'm just going to remove that and tell it to continue with this. So next thing, after handling all of those things, and it's going to, so what it says is going to add the game setup, right, like we have done. It's going to add the undo game input here, which is what we can see here on update. So that means the game plugin for the game module that we have here needs to add some things. We are not just going to have the game state and the add system update anymore. We are going to have an onExit function, which is what does the cleanup for the game. We are going to have a draw shape or whatever it is that it wants to add for it. In this case, it's going to undo game input, which is the function that we see down here, right? It's going to undo game input and draw shapes. I really don't know why it's drawing any shape, but then let's see what it wants to create. And once we are done with that, right, some other things we still need to come in play, but let's see what happens. So update the main app in example.this, replace this, undo dependencies. I will ensure these are available. Then yeah, they are available. Then this is basically how the app is going to look like. So do we allow it proceed? Yes, definitely, because now we are sure that, oh no, why is this screen misbehaving today? Actions. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to make sure that this works perfectly. And how do we do that? So we are going to just tell it to continue, right? And let's see what it comes up with. So we can always, there's a checkpoint you can always use to revert the code. So I'll just tell you to proceed by acting on the game. So let's see what it brings out for us. Let's see the magic is going to perform. So first thing is going to check if you have all the dependencies, which makes sense. We don't want to have broken dependencies in our game. So once that is done and checked, the next thing that's going to happen is you start writing the code one by one, right? So he said, I can see that someone has started the integration, but it's incomplete. The current state has several issues, which is what I did. So it was able to understand that something has changed, right? So which is good. We don't want it rewriting the same thing we've written before. And this is why I was skeptical. You can see this model use search pattern didn't match anything in the file. I'm always scared saying this because then it can write inconsistent things and it can mess up your whole code. So whenever you're working with a very large code base, a point of warning, right? Just make sure you have your backup anyhow you can do it. Probably use Git or you have a version control system. Just make sure you're using one of those things that makes it easy for you to be able to revert to previous version or previous state of your file. Now, all these modems also and probably all of these plugins also have a way to implement this for you, right? You can always click the checkpoint or restore checkpoint. But even with that, there are times like I did one today and I reached right actually restored the checkpoint. But crazy enough, nothing happened. I even went to my history, but it completely over it had completely overwritten all my checkpoints. Funny enough, I don't know how that happened. So I needed to like copy it myself and to make use of it. So I needed to copy it manually and then it worked. So that was what I did. So always remember to implement that backup because it will always come in handy. So that's just a note of warning. Yeah. So now why it does this thing and we allow you to just keep running, and to get everything right. To check through, notice any missing part of the code base and try to fix it. That's basically what is going to happen in this case. So so like we said, it's just copying the existing thing from observer and then copy and paste. That's why we have to provide it the two implementations. Now we are not going abstract by saying, okay, do this completely. That's different from what we are doing. And we are not doing that. So in this case, because we are not doing that, just implement this completely. That means it needs to follow what we've given to it and then find a way to piece it together to work successfully. So that is it. So currently we can see we have all of those things working. We definitely have errors. We have errors in this. We are definitely going to have errors, I think, because I don't know if it's fully aware of how Bevy works, right? All of these things tends to happen when you work with libraries like this. They actually tend to misbehave. Can't really be sure. Okay, so you can see it's still working, but while checking, it can see that there are a lot of issues that it does not have access to. So I'm just going to help it with some of them by making it public. I know that's what it's trying to do. So I'll probably just help it, but then yeah, it's also a good idea not to touch whatever code AI is updating, so it doesn't go implementing nonsense for you. You need to be sure that it knows what it's doing, so you don't just expect it to go haywire, go off point. So it's always best practice to allow them do what they want to do, and then you make your changes. Even if you see that it's making errors, let it be done with it. It might eventually fix it or not fix it. Then that you need to now come in and fix for yourself. So yeah. So let's wait. I believe it should be done soon. Okay, so first thing we notice here is there's this error called get nearby. Get nearby. Okay. Okay, all you needed to do was make it public. Yep. So if I'm not mistaken, everything should be fine now, except for this error we have here in Observer, which is not what we want. We want menu to run, and that should be perfect. So he has successfully done everything he wants to do. Let's go through some of the things it has done just to be sure that we have everything set up. So the first thing we can notice here is the game plugin for the game module has changed. We realize there's this draw shapes, undo click, undo game input, run if state is game this, yeah, which is good. It's a good check. We want to always run these checks when we are in the game state. And the game setup also has been updated, right? With the new stores we have. We don't have the camera anymore, right? Like we said, we commented it out. So now we have every other thing that was in the observer.rs file. We have it in this place. It created the undo game menu, created the menu state for it, which we already have here. So we have a menu state, right? We did not have a menu state. So it created this because we didn't have this before. We only had the game state. And then we had the display. Okay, we had the menu state, yeah, but it wasn't public. Yeah. So we had the menu state that wasn't public. That's true. So it created that for us. But long story short, let's try running this to see what we get. Right. So first thing, to be sure everything here is perfect and to be sure we have exactly what we need, let's see if it works. Let's see if it displays the actual window for us. So first thing I'm going to do is we know the path isn't found for that. I'm going to close the window. I don't know which is the original one and which is the fake one. So I'm going to rerun this so we don't have the two instances running concurrently. Okay, so this is fine. So if I click the settings, we still have the same functionality as yesterday. It loads the sound, right? It still maintains the state. If I go back, come back, it still maintains the state. Remember, display and sound doesn't do anything. It's just a value. It doesn't really affect the display of whatever we are doing. These are improvements we can make over time, right? But currently, this is what we have, and then we have the state. And when we click on new game, what happens? We see this. So that means
In 17
automatically
hours.
it created what we wanted for us. So creating a new game means you can do all of this, and it still works as before, as you can see. So if you go to very clustered places and click on it, you can see it. So we successfully created a game by not creating a game. All we needed was just pick a game, add it to our use case, and boom, we have it. Now you see how AI was able to speed up our workflow, because imagine if we were doing that one by one, we needed to be sure that we check this, we copy this, we do this. But copy and paste will even take time because we need to check we are copying to the right places. But by using AI, we've been able to bring that time down to like less than 5 minutes from telling you what to do to implementing the entire thing. And currently we have this. So if I press the escape key, like we said, it goes to the game menu. It literally goes to the game menu and renders that. So there are other things we can do to make it fun. Instead of displaying this with a very black background, right? We want to make it look like an actual game whereby, so let's go to the game setup, the menu setup, and try implementing that. We want the color to be a bit transparent, but remember we've not done transparency here yet. And if you notice what we've done so far, this is a 2D implementation. You can see that whenever we go back and then we continue this, there's no resume state. It's basically just you start from where you stopped before. Literally, that's what is happening. So, but in this case now we have the game and we have everything showing as it should. So yes, we can see this. So clicking of this works. Clicking this, clicking this, clicking this, clicking this, clicking this. Everything literally works for us here. So we're able to combine two separate apps by combining them and maintaining state. Now, when we click the menu, you can see what happens here. You can see that it's giving us the actual implementation that we want. So if I click the escape again, it shows up the menu. If I click a new game, it respawns the entire thing, restarts the process. There's no state saving here at all currently. So we can always improve this, right? Think about it. There's the other bunch of things we can do. First thing I want us to do is to make this transparent. That's this menu, so that the red stays where it is, but we have this background there, not just being displayed there. So let's go to the menu module and see that. Remember, this crimson color is what we have as this background, reddish background. It's actually crimson. So we have this, we have it defined, having a color. Um, what else? Mhm. Okay, how can we change that? Let's look for where we have that. So to display that, the spawn on exit, we create this, and are setting 100, this on display setting menu screen, crimson dot into display quality. Oh, this is for display. We don't want for display. We actually want for the parent. Yes, which is this one. Bevy game menu UI is what we want to implement and modify. So Bevy game menu UI, which is this, is what we want to modify here. So we let's see there's a background implemented to it or added to it. And there is no background. So we really have colors for the buttons, the normal buttons, the overt state, and all of those things. So we can add, we can get other colors. We can get other colors. Let's use Azure, for instance. So let's modify it to use Azure instead of crimson as the background. Yeah, I know I like to look for trouble in these scenarios, but let's try it and see. Azure dot into. Let's modify this, run this, and see what we get. So using this now, you can see that we successfully have. Okay, let's once this is executed, binary loads. We have our app again. You can see the Azure color, but I don't like this color actually. It's terrible. So this is nope, not here. Okay, let's look for the color that we can use here. Let's pick a color, not too shouty, not dull, somewhere in between. We have Orchid, we have the pink, we have Dodger blue. Okay, I like none of these colors actually. Okay, we have at least this is cool. The light salmon is cool. We can actually use this. Or you know what? Let's stick to what we have. Let's stick to crimson, basically, and just leave that. So this is what we have now. Let me restart this. So if I click on the new game, what happens? A new game spawns up. So we can do this. We can do this concurrently, and then if I click on escape key, it goes back to this. Click on new game, it goes back here. Click on this, it goes back. Click on this, it goes back. You can see what keeps happening, and it's literally what happens here. So you successfully have this, and then you can play with it, play around with it. It's just a game state. So we can do more than this. We can simply implement the game state ourselves by like making it work. So, but we don't want to do that. Like I said, there's no need writing all of these things except you want to make changes. If you have issues, you go through the code and see, okay. But for this use case, I want to teach you guys how to also do this because this is a part of how we work from now on. If you're not using AI for your workflow, you literally don't know how you are doing it. So, but once you understand Rust, it's easy to pick up. That doesn't mean you should just give AI to write everything for you. This is game dev. You need to understand what you are doing. So the reason why we're able to do this is because we already have two different things, right? We have two different games. We have the game itself, we have the menu written separately. So what we did was to bring them together, combine them, right? So that's basically what we've done. So that is it. So settings doesn't affect the game. The game works perfectly well. So we can add settings to add the sound. This is something we can take up and then say that okay, we want to do this. Let's add it. Let's configure the display. Should the display quality be high or low or medium? And it should, if we want to do it, should affect the game itself. But the only way this can be done is we need to implement a game configuration for this game itself, not for the menu now. So that whenever any action is being performed there, you can see that everything that happens here, this maintains its own states, and the game also maintains its own states here. So it doesn't really affect any other thing. It doesn't affect itself. It still works as it's supposed to work very perfectly. So that's what we have here. So I'm going to take this back. We don't need this. Let's avoid unnecessary input. Okay, so what else? Let's see if there's a way we can implement this transparency. Okay, no, what? Let's not do that yet. This is not the time to polish. Let's go back. This is basically what I wanted to show us first today. I wanted to show us this yesterday, but I felt like I needed a lot more time to explain this. So we need to do a bit more on some other aspect of the examples. So we've already covered this, right? We've covered the game menu. So you see the combination of these two things now. Literally, we've combined the game menu, which seemed like a lot of code, right? And then we check the observers too, which seemed like a lot of code. But from what we've done so far, it literally took us just how many lines of code? Less than 1,000 lines to implement all of this. A functional game that works, that you can play, you can do. Of course, it doesn't have a lot of things. There's no tracking menu, there's no traffic tracking the count, the time it took you to complete. So this is an actual game you can play whereby you try to kill the bubble and then you say that okay, how long does it take me to do this? To win to complete the entire level, right? For a start, you can make a level management system whereby you click on this and then it tracks all the menu, tracks all of this, tracks all of this, tracks all of this, tracks. I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. Though this is actually fun because it's fun even for me playing this, right? And then you can make this a game to see how fast it is. We have a menu or a timer that displays somewhere at the top here that just tells you how long you spent playing the game. So let's see if you can add that to it. So I'll start by saying that, oh, nice, this works perfectly. I want to add a timer that shows me how long I have spent playing the game. Can we have this? So what we want to do now is to add a timer to it. Now we see that we can play the game and it works like without any problem. And then the menu controls the game. So we can't start the game without going through the menu in this case. So think of it like a game startup screen that you see, and then you select and say, oh yes, I want to start this game by selecting the menu. And then you click the new game feature and then it works. But in this case, we want to have a timer that shows us how long we spent playing the game. So once you start the game like this, just the way I'm playing here, I want to know how long it takes me. So we can make this an actual game that if I click this, how do I track it? Right? I say, oh, I click this, 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 I click this. And then it takes me time. I keep clicking and 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 clicking. And then it's possible to implement this, right? Like it's literally possible to implement. This is a fun game that you can play, you can click, and then you can take it in levels, in level of complexity. And then you can see how long it takes you. You can have complex stuff added to it. You can even have a global dashboard or something. Thinking too far right now, but then you understand the point. So this is literally what we can do. But then we don't want to write all of these things ourselves. As long as you're able to understand what is going on, that is why I've been taking time to explain, which was what I said yesterday. You need to understand what the code is about and the interactions between different states, different part of the code, so that you can make changes. You can make effective changes for your code base. And I believe that we've done a lot of all of those simple things that we need to join together. Like for instance, you understand when we talk about why do we have a plugin? We know why what we need a plugin for. And that was basically what we did in this use case. What does this mean? We understand this when we click the play button. In this case, we are setting the game state to game. We are setting the menu state, disabling it completely. So that means the menu does not get displayed and it cannot even be triggered by probably using the keyboard until you respawn the game states generally. So these are just common general Rust syntax. It's not that's nothing to do with Bevy right now. But then you can see by just combining all of this syntax, we can create something beautiful for ourselves. So now we've talked about adding a timer, and then according to the response from the AI, it says timer feature implementation plan is a great idea. Tracking the gameplay time would be nice. So what do we need to do? We need to add. It says I'll add the game timer to track how long the player has been in the game state and displays it, which is perfectly what we want. Remember, the game state is what controls what we see in the game. When we go to the settings page, we have the settings state, right? The game settings state is what controls the game settings. literally in this state. So it's different from the game state that we have. The game setting state is different from the game state, right? So that means it perfectly understand what we are trying to do. So it's here we add the timer to see how long it really has been in the game state and display it. Here's where I'll put it. Add timer resource in the game module. We need a timer resource. We always have a timer resource. That's where we have this timer, then we have RES, then we have the timer. If you remember this stuff here, this thing I'm talking about, this line. Let me show you the line. We always have it in every single function we've used so far. Okay, let me go here. In the game setup, I think we are close. I might remove this previous one because we don't need that again, but let's leave it for now. Not this, not this, not this. I'm talking about okay, let me pick one of these. The menu plugin. Okay, the menu plugin doesn't have the timer, so we are not using timer. So none of it has timer for now. But if you check the previous code we've done, let me pick one of the previous ones. Like the sprite, yes. The sprite used time a lot because sprite means you are rendering different sprites at different time intervals, right? To control things like FPS and stuff. So in this case, remember when we did that timer, how did we add it as a resource? We added it, let's check the function. We added timer like as a resource to where's timer here. So we added it as a resource somewhere, but I can't remember where that is. But we can also add it in other ways too. All we need to do is add it like this, res, and then we add timer somewhere. But you guys you get the point. This is an example, yes, res, and we add time somewhere. So we can create it like this. There's also an instance of adding timer. I can't find that right now. You guys get the idea. So that's what I'm trying to say. And this is what the AI also understands it needs to do. So look, location is in the game module, which is the example, and it's going to be somewhere in between when we render the screen, the game itself, when we render the game. So that's where it's going to probably add it. Where's the game module? So it will probably be in the game module. In fact, it definitely be in the game module, right? But it needs to first create a timer resource that will keep track of that globally. So it's going to add a timer resource like this, very up at the top of the code base. And then it initialize the timer by doing this in game setup, which, like I said, is going to be in the game module. So in the game setup, whereby the game is being rendered, right? So what it's going to do here, it's going to add that timer somewhere at the beginning of when this is being set up, like when we are spawning this. It's going to add the timer there, and then it's going to define what is going to happen, probably with a function or something to define the time it's going to run, whether repeating or running once. So that's what is going to happen. So it's going to add the timer resource, initialize the timer here. That's in game setup command or insert resource, which is going to be here. So if I'm not mistaken, it's going to add command, but I'm not going to write that. Let's just undo it since it already understands. So it's just going to add command dot this here, so we can copy this and paste. Sorry, I'm just too forward on seeing it work properly. So you're going to add the resource here, just like we have game timer. You can see that there's literally no error anywhere. Everything is fine. So that means we have everything settled. Then update timer system, that's where it needs to add the function. Like I said, it needs to update that with something. So what it's going to do here is add to game systems. It's going to add the systems where we have at the top here. Remember, we have that here. So it's going to be at the game state here, right? Basically at the update where we have, okay, it has to be on the update. Why? Because we want to run it every render per frame, every frame per render, every render for every frame, right? So that's what we want, where we want to have it. So we need to have it in update. So we need to have a function that does that. Like I said, we need to have a function that updates that. So those are the three things we need. So the first thing we need is what? Let me uncomment this. Okay, so we have this. We need to also have the timer, and then we need to have the timer logic, and then we need to display text that does that. So I'm just going to tell it to do it because it looks cool. It matches what we want to do actually. So initially we need to have this timer, which we've added. It needs to have the system. It needs to add the timer to the system so that it can tell our game state when to update it or what should happen when it is updated, which in this case is inside the update scheduler. And then the next thing that needs to happen is in the timer logic. The timer logic now needs to handle what happens, just like I said, what happens when each of it runs per probably per second or depending on your, and then we have the time. resume, pause and resume logic. So that interesting is going to add the pause and resume. So we want to do that. So in this case, let's do this. Let's say, yeah, let's go with this. So I'm going to ask you to do this. So let's see what happens. So remember, I've already added the timer resource myself. So that means there shouldn't be an issue with implementing that. The timer resource should be perfectly okay. And then let's see what we get from here. So it knows where to start from. It's basically going to start from there and implement it. Okay, so while we wait, oh, there's a lot of errors. Oh, no. I hope it hasn't done any stupid thing right now. Yeah, it has. It has done something stupid right now by adding that there. Oh, jeez. Okay, let's assume it's going to be fine. We already know where the error is coming from. We can fix it. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, let's see. Should be fine, except for the terrible place where it added that code that should not be there. Don't worry, we can always restore it back to the previous place where it should be. This is what I was talking about AI messing up your code base, especially when you have no backup or you have no version control. Jeez, you could lose files. Trust me, speaking from experience here. So yeah, so yes, that is so that aside, let's see if you can get this done. If you can get this done, I'm just going to take it back to what it should be and then implement all of them step by step and then ask it to complete it. So that's basically what I'm going to do. I think it's struggling to do this. You might need to cancel it and go back. Really struggling. Okay, I think it successfully did that. Hopefully it doesn't tamper with the existing code functionalities or any of the existing. Okay, yeah. So it already added new things to it, which is strange. Why did you add that much code? When I undo game input. Okay, it updated the undo game input, clean up game. So it's adding multiple undo game input to it. You can literally see the issue with this double undo game input, which we do not need. Literally the same things. Now we have a duplicate, which we don't want. So these are the things I keep talking about. But then it's actually fun because it helps speed up your workflow. You don't really need to, take too long implementing all of this. Let's see if it works. If it doesn't, you can just take it back to the previous checkpoint. We already know what to do. We can just copy the code to make it faster for us. Tell it to generate the code and let's see if it works. Yeah, it breaks. You can see. So it doesn't work. So that means it has done something terrible based on what's, yeah. Okay, that's fine. So let me respond this and see what we get. So now it breaks. So we can't use this, right? So we need to go back. That's already spoiled a lot of things there. So this is why you should be careful using AI, right? You can see what it literally cost for us. So I'm just going to tell it to do something else. I'm going to see if that goes back. Hopefully it doesn't exist anymore. Yep. Let me look for the stuff I added myself. Yeah, which is this. So this is still there. That's cool. So let me test this first, just to be sure that we have the previous code, the previous example working perfectly as it should. So so if I click on this, you see now it works. So that means it was totally broken the other time. So what we're going to do is follow the implementation here by just copying and pasting this. not much problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this timer logic, copy it, right? We want to update timer. And where we are going to have it is simply in the same place as where we have all this game state and all of those things. So we are going to create it here, update timer. Now, this is not complete yet, so we are going to tell it to complete the function, right? Instead of having to write the function, but that's data side. So we are going to add the timer itself. We are going to spawn the timer inside this same game setup. And what does that mean? It simply means we can add it probably here. We can add it here. Let's create a timer here. So it does almost the same thing. Then the next thing is to add the game. So now for the game input, we need to modify the game input, reset to 25. So we currently have a game input here, but we don't have the logic for pausing and setting that pause and resume functionality here. So we want to add that. So basically all we need to do is add this last code to it, timer. So but then timer does not exist. So we need to add timer to this. So mute timer equal to, we need to add the resource like I said the other time. So we need to add the mutable resource to it. So and that should give us our implementation. So that way we can control it because we already know the time. It has a time state that we can use. So yeah, and that should be it because we already have a keyboard here, so we can use that, toggle the pause state. So we can use our space key to toggle this pause state. And one last thing we can do is, remember this stuff we added, the text we added here that says click, the time is this, click mines to explode them, escape this, font size is 20. Literally the same thing here, right? But it's not too different. Okay, that's fine. But I feel like we can actually combine this into the same place. So we don't need to have it into different places. So let's make that change because, okay, no, we can't because we want them to be on in different locations. Absolute. The positions are different, so we can't have them in the same place. So let's leave it as it is. And yeah, that's basically all we need to do. But one last thing we need to undo is the fact that we do not have the update timer properly configured, and it is also not being used in the update scheduler that we have. So we need to add it to the update scheduler by adding it to update and saying that here after the handle game input we have update timer. So the update timer needs to implement the logic that should run when, for every second or every frame per second, or for every frame, every refresh of the frame. So I'm going to go to update timer and then I'm going to tell it to complete this code. So I'll say generate the, going to go to plan, generate the complete code logic for update timer function. Basically complete. So this is going to complete that. And from there, we are done with this. Okay, so it's telling me to sign in again. So I'm going to sign in again. All right, so I'm going to sign in and then everything should be back to normal. Okay, now the screen is gone again. Why does this keep happening? What is this? Sorry about this, guys. Like, this is so annoying. Don't know why this keeps happening. Okay, so the last thing we need is just for you to generate the code for this timer. It's just to change the state and then we are done. It's not crazy, but yeah, just let's just implement that. And then if all is done, okay, so it's finding it difficult to do this. So if it cannot, I'll probably use the code to finish this up here. I'll just say complete implementation of this. But the difference is that kilo code, we need to then understand the code first of all, So yeah, so I'll wait. Let's see if the client can come back. It's kind of back. So I'll just copy this, go to a new task. Hopefully, let's just assume that that is because it timed out, or the request timed out for some reason. So I can run both of them and see the comparison eventually. Okay, so he's saying, yeah, he wants to read through because this is a new task generally. So let's see which one does that first of all. Okay, client was faster. It says, here's what I found. Provide me the details. So by doing this, we can see we've almost completed everything we set out to do, like completely, literally. Okay, so let's see what Kilo does for us. Kilo doesn't added anything. It's just telling me what to do to implement it. So add the time display component to display the tag entity, add this and that and this. 60-second timer countdown. Okay, I'm just going to go with what client gives to us, and then we can just proceed from there. Okay, so let me tell you to complete this since you've already done majority of the work. Let's see if we can successfully do this without breaking everything here. Oh no, this is wrong. I understand what he's doing. No. Cancel this. I do not want this. I don't know what you've done. This is the problem. Now you guys can see what I was talking about. All right, so next thing to do is the timer function. What we decode the function body like. Okay, so like from the okay, so this doesn't even know what to do. So I'm simply telling you to check to see if it has a body, and it's already assumed that it's already created, even though I restored the previous checkpoints. Now you can see what we are talking about here. So this is how it's going to continue hallucinating and not implement what I want. So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to skip this and proceed to any implementation. But the problem now is that we need to understand the previous logic of telling it to start with the two game scripts, right? So, and I'm saying that, okay, so I'll just say this, I'll copy this, even though I don't want the entire thing. Copy the text and then go to the new one and say things like there are two game scripts. It's a menu that renders this, modify, doesn't do anything. I want you to modify this to load this when you give a trigger. So, function is not implemented. Can you implement this? And how will you implement this? So basically the same prompt, but in a different way. So I need to give you context for so for you to understand what it's done. And so it doesn't go hallucinating and picking what is not needed. So it's just supposed to stick to this single code. And so it's going to show me what I need to add without going to any other code or any other file within the app, which was what it did previously. So these are ways you can limit your LLMs because, like I said, that's what everybody uses these days. So it's good to be familiar with how to use it so that you can make your work faster. Like imagine what we've done today, to just in a few seconds, a few minutes, just to be able to implement this. So he said the changes needed, modify the game setup, fix the timer initialization, complete update timer, and UI query. Where is UI? Where is it picking UI query for? Use only the menu example file for context. Don't import any external module within this project from any other file I have in this project. Can you do this? You need to be sure that you can handle this. So literally, this is it. So what we need to do currently the app works. Like I'm just trying to add an implementation here. The app currently works. So let me show you what I have. What we have here is this. Let's see what it says. It said add the time tracking. Okay, so it's going to show this. So currently you see everything works fine and you can see the time, right? But what we are trying to do is the time doesn't count whenever we are working. So it's supposed to be counting immediately. Time should be counting one, two, this, that, but currently not counting anything. So if you see as I'm clicking this, it's supposed to be counting itself. So if I click space, space, nothing happens here, right? So that's one thing we need to do. Another thing we can do here generally is, so you already have it implemented. It's just that it doesn't get updated for every second because there's no implementation to add update anything. So two things, I'm going to change this text because I don't like the way it displays here. So I'll probably just move this to this space. You know what? Like I said, I don't want to change. Let me just leave this here. Let me make it absolute top left. let's if it has left. Also, font text is 20, text color is the same color. So we have everything already working, but we want to add one more thing to it, just the countdown, the timer, that whenever I work, I want to implement that time and I want it to increase. So what it's saying now is that looking at this, we already have this, which already implemented. Remember the one we added, the resource we added? Where is it again? Yeah, this one. So we added the resource from here, duration from 0. So it should display elapsed time. This one, this already has the spacebar functionality to pause and resume the timer. But remember, like I said, the timer will not pause and resume because there's nothing to pause and there's nothing to resume. Why does this keep breaking? Jeez, what is happening today? Wow. So that's what we have here. So the next thing we're going to do is now we have the UI display. We already have the pause logic, but it's not working because it needs to be updated within the update function. So fix the initial timer initialization, change the timer from once with 0 to a repeating timer, which is exactly what we need. Use a different approach from tracking elapsed time. So it seems incorrect for a game timer. Implement timer update logic. This in the UI. Fix update the text component that displays the timer. Track time from game start. Allow pause and resume. So that means everything works as we want it to. So key implementation change the. So it needs to. It says the main changes needed. Modify the timer initialization. Complete the update timer. Add the actual time tracking logic and update logic. Query the timer display and update it. Use the existing game timer resource, update the UI. So basically all he wants to do, should the timer count up indefinitely limit? Let's set the time limit of um so this is where questions. What you need to do is ask the questions because he needs the questions to be able to define what to do. So this is just a way of practically implementing it even for a program, a language like Rust and a game engine like Bevy. So to answer your questions, now you see I'm answering this. Now remember I'm not even using any of these top end models to implement this. I'm not using Claude, I'm not using any of those things. I even Gemini Pro. Like I'm using a free LLM literally to implement this and it's working. So you don't need to consider like you need to pay for any subscription for this to work literally. So to answer your question one, the timer should count indefinitely. Two, the time format should be yeah, choose any okay. Let's use minutes. The timer format should be minutes, seconds format. And the third answer to the question is when the timer finishes, there is time limit, what should happen? So when the timer, okay, so there's no time limit, so this doesn't count. Time limit. So this is what we need. Add a new resource. I don't want it to add any. We don't need this. It's about to go creating things we don't need now. We don't need the game resource, but uh, okay. So basically, what we need now is this should happen. Where is the stuff we are trying to work with? So basically, we understand what needs to happen here, right? So timer finish will show the final score, return to the menu. So in this case, the timer is not being updated because we need it to update, but it's currently not being updated truly because when we click like the space, or we need the space to pause the time or approve the time. But you can see what we've done so far, right, in terms of that also. So that's an announcement you can make. So I don't want to dwell on this much because we still need to add some other stuff. So I was thinking the AI will be able to run those things first or as fast as possible, but then we don't want to dwell on this. So so it's two things I think we might need this, we might need the game time resource truly. So but I don't think that is really necessary. Implement the get update time to update elapsed time if not pause. Query the timer display or the text entity, update the text with formatted time. Undo game input. So we already have undo game input to update this. When we click the space bar, press that timer dot post, right? If timer dot post, use is post. Okay, so we need to use is post instead. Is post. So if the timer is paused, unpause it. But currently the timer is not paused or started for any reason. So that's why the pause it doesn't. We don't know if the space is working, but it should work, right? So show me the code to update the game, the update timer function. So now let's go to the next thing I want us to do. Why that is working on by the side. So we've successfully done the two things we plan to do today, which is one, implement the game menu and start a game, which is this. We can now make it even more interesting, whereby we have a menu with different games that we can start. So that when we click on the observer game, it loads the observer game. When we click on the breakout game, for instance, this it loads the breakout game. Now, this breakout game is a simple implementation of this game, or we have the alien at the cake addict stuff. This we are not implementing this, right? So let's check the breakout game just to give you a bit of context. Oh, my screen is gone again. Jeez, what is happening here? Oh my god. This is I'm so sorry everyone. Like this is annoying. Wow. Okay, so this is what the breakout game looks like. It's like all these games that we see online, but this just breaks stuff. Now, if you had to look at, or let me ask this question, right? If you've been following this, let me see if there's a way I can pause this. I don't want the sound is distracting. So if there's a way you could, you want to, if you want to see how possible you can implement this, what do you need to do? Now, there are certain things you want to take by implementing this. I don't want to go with this yet because this requires new about new concept like collision detection. Those are some of the things we want to implement here. So we are not implementing this. That will probably treat this tomorrow because this will teach us a new concept. Now, remember we treated a lot of things. We've done 2D, we've done animation, 2D animations, we've done 2D sprite animation or 3D sprite manipulations. We've done asset loading, asset management, even though not completely all of them, just few, but we've done that to give you an idea of what to do if you see it. Now, this is game itself called breakout game. Now, this breakout game, what does it do? It's just a game whereby it's like this. We are familiar with this game. I believe everybody is familiar with this game. So in this case now, this currently works. Now, if I'm to ask certain questions, number one, we implement collision detection here, but that's not the question I want to ask you because we've not talked about that. But you can see that something happens when you hit any of these blocks, it leaves the view completely. So that should tell you that it's simply working like the observer, whereby it is despawned out of view, it is hidden from the view completely. That's exactly what is happening. But in this case now, it becomes a simple game that you can implement. I don't know if this makes sense to you. So you can see all the concepts adding up, all the concepts adding up. They are simply adding up to one another. You added this, now you want to implement it with this. So all the things we implemented so far, like four, well, the first four parts of this series, now is coming together. Now we are good. The reason I'm not implementing this today is because we need to learn new concept like collision detection, which we've not spoken about at all. But by doing this, right, we can see that the concept implemented yesterday or currently now in the observer that removes it from the view itself still works. We can see that now. So that means it works. So that means it's the same concept almost everywhere. So if you understand one part of it, you can literally understand every other part of the code itself. So you can see all of these examples helping us to implement all of these things. So let's see. Let's go back to this to see if this works for us. Okay, the update timer has finally given us what we want. Oh, I like this approach. Why? Because it's initializing game time now. So that means it has a separate game time instance that is managing and tracking. So two things we need to do. We need to actually add this to it. So we need to add this resource called the game time resource. I don't know if we've done that already, but I don't think we have a game time resource. Nope, we don't have a game time resource, but we have a game timer. Now a game timer is just let me ask the question. Why do we need game timer when game time resource when we already have a game timer resource? find. So this is why you should understand this. You want to ask questions because, like I said, it can make your code extremely complex for no reason. AIs can make your code extremely complex because it literally makes no sense. But if you see a good reason as to why, right, you can now understand that, okay, maybe I should use it. Maybe something I overlooked. Now, in this case, now you're saying, great question. You're absolutely right to question this. Let me explain the issue with the game timer and why initially suggested a separate game time. Problem with current game timer is this. So you already understand what it's used for. Initialize as this. The issues are wrong mode, timer done once when it finishes immediately. So two things. Let me do some let me do something here. Let me change this to repeating. I'm trying to make it something for my own self now, not the AI logic. So it's saying that by using the game timer mode dot once with 0 seconds, it means it finishes immediately, which is not what we want, right? So you can see that literally nothing happens truly. Oh my god, what did I do? How did I set it up like this? Not the splash, not the splash. Oh no, not this, not this, no, not this. Okay, this one. No, not this too. This is the 5 seconds timer. Oh no. Do you still have the 5 seconds timer? Okay, the setup code. Yeah, we don't need that again. Phew. Wow. Okay, this is the one we need. Insert resource. This one. So this one. So this one, first things first, I don't want this to be 12, I want this to be 20. 12 is a bit too small. Let it be 20 or 24. So it's double the resource. So let me run this, show you guys what I want to. What was that? Okay, sorry guys. Back to this. So it's not working too. So let's understand why this is requesting us to use a different approach. So it says, why does this work better? Okay. So yeah, it's based on what I was talking about. So we break out. My screen is gone again. Oh Jesus. God. I need to go on. I need to actually optimize my laptop. Do some cleanups. Jeez. I feel like this is a space issue. Okay, so what I was talking about, the breakouts here requires me to have this, right? It requires like removing certain objects from the view from view totally. So like you are despawning it. So that means everything we've been learning for the first four part of this series actually is coming together now. Right. We understood all the concept we need. We understand the concept of cameras, we understand the concept of words, we understand the concept of implementing something like this, right? Which is we've not done collision yet, which is where we are going to start from in the next part of this series, which is part 6. We are talking about collisions. So yeah. So um, also, if you'd like to get notified for that, please consider subscribing to this channel so that you won't miss notifications, which I'm going to be creating today regarding when that will happen, which basically is the same 4 p.m. West African time. Then, just to be reminded, just consider subscribing. Yes. So that aside, that will be the first thing we check tomorrow, which is part 6 of this series. But before that, also we need to also consider something else. Now we have the Bevy examples, and we are not done. There are still other things. Now this is a very interesting example, right? Let me show you what this does. It's called contributors, and it does something. So it displays each contributor to the Bevy source code as a bouncing Bevy ball, right? So to everyone that's contributed, so that means he actually makes a call, checks the contribution on GitHub, and then uses that to create something. So first of all, this is actually where we do a lot more of working with array data types because we need to store all of the users and then loop through them, create something, display this, and all those other stuffs that we do. So, but then let me show you what this does. And uh, there's something I'm looking for here. I've not found it. I would like to show you guys that so you can see. Because at the end of the day, this is basically just a normal code that you write, but well, in a more using a more different approach, right? But it's still just a code, just as every other code. All right, this is not displaying as I want it to yet. I will let the AI do this. It's not going to break anything correctly. If it does, we are going to just revert it and fix it. We already know what to do and how to fix it, so we can multitask right now. So yes, that's what we are going to do. Um, okay, so we are going to do something else. So let's go back to the example. So we've seen these are 5 screens, these are 5 games. We are going to touch on the breakout in the next part of the series, which is literally part 6 of the series. So this doesn't require the collision, it doesn't do anything as the collision. I don't think there's any collision here. That's what I've been trying to look for, right? Let me check again just to be sure from the source code. Do we have anything like that? Well, I think it does. There's a bounding. Just to be sure. Let me be sure. Let me not just assume that. It's not even loading for me to see what's happening right now. Okay, can't find what I'm looking for. Probably I'm not giving it more attention to find it. But that's basically what I was trying to look for and I still didn't see it. Oh god, this still did nonsense again. Come on. How do you make mistake by just fixing 4 things? Jeez. Updating this should not even take you this long. Check through the code base and see how text has been updated since. There's no mute. Oh my god. Jeez. Okay, let's just leave this. I don't even want to bother myself about that. I cannot be back. Let it do its thing. Okay, so the next thing I would like us to do is that we will touch on also, which is the part 6. I want us to complete this and then implement something else on this. Keeps using these sections. Where do you see sections from? Maybe doesn't even use this syntax at all. Jeez. Oh no, don't go and scatter all that. Okay, know what? Yes, the other things we can check here. The other things we can see this smooth follow. This is another thing I would like us to look at. This is actually very impressive because it's a way of you've seen those other games, many games where you see things like, oh yeah, finally this is working. Now yeah, you can see this is and many more. So this is displaying all of them. You can see. So there's this collision also. Okay, it's not really collision, but in this case, you can see the bouncing. Okay, yeah, the bouncing effect, moving. So this is still the same thing that happens on this breakout game that we can see here. So you can see that it still has this bounding also, right? So automatically has the bounding. So it has intersect volume, it has the volume, the bounding circle, yeah, all of those things. So it has all of those things. So the bounding is very important for this use case because you're actually going to define and my screen is gone again. Oh my god. I'm so sorry, guys. Like, I'm sorry for this happening today. It shouldn't be happening. I really don't know what's happening here. So the bounding is what is happening here. Then we have this bounding. Then we have the plugins, resources, the systems, the observer, and a lot more things. Actually, okay. So, but basically, we've considered this right in the part 6 of our series because it's actually very simple. You can see the ball is just a circle, like for now, because we don't have any proper material defined on it. Just the basic color that we have. So that's why it looks just basic color. But we can add more things to it. We can implement the scoreboard. The scoreboard, if you consider the way it is there, and let's look at this. No, this guy is terrible. He left errors in my code and just assume it is complete. Jesus. AI. It's a joke. So annoying. Okay, we're done. All you need to do is just add zero to it, and that's all. But can't even figure that out. It can be annoying sometimes, really annoying sometimes. But that is out of the way. Let's just proceed. Hopefully everything is fine. If it's not, I'll just revert it and then we add this ourselves. Yeah, completely failed. Wow. Tried to run event and but no handler was set. Completely failed. Jeez, that was terrible. So you just broke the code and just assumed told me everything is completed. Like who does that? Well, AI does that, but who does that? Really? That's so cringe. Okay, I know I'm not using a top notch model for this, but yeah, you still get the point. That still doesn't require this happening. It's still cringe. Like if you can't fix it, just say you can't fix it. Don't go telling me you are done with what you are not done with. You know what? Taking it back to what we have. I'm restoring it definitely to the previous implementation. So you just broke everything we've done before that was working. Sheesh. Why is this laptop doing this? Why? I know I'm running a lot of things, but come on, can take this. You know what? I'm just going to restore everything because there's literally nothing that's been done here so far. So I'm just going to restore it completely. Yeah, back to where we are before. So I'm going to use another model to try doing this. I'm going to use Kilo. Let's see if I can get Kilo to implement this for me. Right? I know, yes, we can do this, but yeah, I still need to implement it. So this says I've analyzed the code and created a plan to do this. Here's what I propose. This. So what I'm going to do is to copy the same instruction I gave to this guy and see if this one can follow it much better and implement that for us in a much more approachable way. And that actually fixes the problem. So currently it doesn't do that. Uh, okay, this is I'm trying to use only. Okay, let me ask the question again. Okay, I was talking about the collision. So for the breakouts, you can see this function called this cupboard, which updates this cupboard. Then check for collisions. Now, this check for collisions function, what it does is the collision happens, the whole collision detection one with collider. You can see there's a collider here. So I'm not going to like explain all of this today because we need to implement this in the next session. It's actually scheduled for the next session. But what we've done today, without wasting time, and we've been able to come out two separate things, combine the two games together and implement a game with a time functionality. Now, the time functionality has not been right. This is what we are trying to complete, but we are trying to use in this, even though we are providing support and making slight changes. Oh no, this one is changing it already. I'm not asking you to change. Oh Jesus. Okay, let's assume it's fine, right? Because it doesn't seem to have any error. I think this makes more sense. This used the where is it getting timer display from? It's my question. Okay, so you created timer display. Okay, update timer. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, this works fine. Let's see. Let's see. So did this count down? Ugh, this doesn't make a countdown. I don't want a countdown. I want it to run indefinitely. Just show me how long it has worked. Okay, we can modify that. That shouldn't be a problem. We modify that ourselves. No problem. But you guys have seen what I'm trying to say. So there's a way using AI to implement your logic can go very wrong, but it can also speed up your workflow, right? So you can see it's counting down for me. And once it's done counting down, it's going to go back to the menu. That is what it implemented from what I can see here. So which is what we want, but not fully what we want, because it could do better, right? Like, But this is it. You guys can see it keeps counting down, counting down, counting down, counting down, telling you. So this is a fun game to implement. You can implement this as a fun game, even on probably convert this to something that can run on the web, just like we have these guys running on the web. We can convert it to run on a web application as Web3GL or Web GPU rather, or WebGL3. We can do any of those things. And if I pause this, you can see the timer is paused, but that doesn't mean I still can continue. So there's a flawed logic currently in this, and you guys have realized the flawed logic already. It simply means I can pause the timer and still continue playing the game and unpause the timer. So that means it works perfectly well. So the way we can modify this is simple. This time already currently exists on the game state, right? So what we can do is whenever the game is paused, we need to also prevent this click from working, right? So let me show you what I mean and where we are going to implement that. But I'm not going to write it. I'm still going to allow AI write it, but I'm going to point it to what I want it to do. I think I prefer this countdown implementation because it makes a lot more sense. It can be a separate mode, right? It can be a separate mode, but it still works. It still works for our use case. So we can still use it. We can use that as a separate mode. We have like two different modes. We have the countdown mode and we have the the I'm trying to think of a name to call it. We won't call it generic. It's just countdown and legacy. No, legacy seems too old. Uh Countdown and okay, I don't know. We think of something, right? We can have two game modes, which is very interesting. So I'm thinking possibly of how we can extend this game. Like if I click on escape now, it comes back to this menu. But I'm trying to actually make the menu a bit more tush. Now I know we are not implementing this. I don't want to implement this today because, like I said, we still want to learn some more things before we start doing a lot of polishing on the game. Because if you want to do what I want to do is actually make it in a way that we have instead of having buttons like this, we have two card-like display on the game itself, not as a separate screen, or even as a separate screen, doesn't matter. And we have that card-like display and when we click on any of them, so the card light display will display two things. It will give us the card light display will give us the legacy. Let me call it legacy. I can't think of any other thing right now. So it's going to be one legacy, then the other one counts down mode or game mode, counts down mode. Let's call it those two things: game mode, countdown mode. So those will be the cards at the middle of the screen. Then the settings is going to be at the top right or at the bottom left, bottom center. Like it's going to be any of those places, or we can have it below the two cards as settings, quit, and some other things like or settings and end game, right? We can have those two things, settings and end game, literally as that, and then we can make it a bit more polished. But this will take time, and I don't want AI to implement UI for me. I don't know how good it is implementing UI for Bevy. If it's you web now, yes, we know that web is easy to do, but I don't want to gamble on that for now. But then this is a cool feature, right? We can then tell it to we can pause this, like I said, and keep playing the game. But I don't want that to happen. So what we are going to do is tell it to make a change to this. Now I noticed that you can pause the game and still be pause the timer and still be able to play the game. You should not be able to play the game when the timer is paused. Can we implement this restriction for the time game and timer? Now let's ask this question and see what happens. Now this is fun. Now the reason why this is fun is because we are not doing a lot of thinking, right? To think of how to place it here and place it here and place it here. But we are doing a lot of thinking to guide it and then to fix the issues. Right? There are a lot of issues we fix today. We fix a lot of it, and we can fix all of those deprecated things he's trying to use. But we need to understand first. Now, this is how it helps us to make our work faster. This is how it can help you to actually learn and build at the same time. Come on, don't update until I tell you to update. Oh jeez. Okay, let's just assume it's going to do the right thing, but I'm going to give it explicit instruction. Tell me how to do it without implementing it yet. At least tell me that first of all. So that's very important. Like always ask the AI to do stuff for you before implementing it for you. Now, what did he implement here. It says implemented the pause restriction in handle click function. Checks if the timer is paused at the beginning. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. You did the right thing because it has to be inside of the um game input, right? Or let me say basically the game input function where you click the space. Now when you click the space now, you cannot make that change. So we need to check the game setup function to be sure that you cannot trigger any of those things. So we need so what this needs to check is check that we cannot click. That's basically what it needs to check. So this click is where the explosion happens, right? So if you cannot click, explosion will not happen. So that's basically what you did. So this is all we added. I hope you guys understand. So this is something we could have added, but yes, it's good to always see it in action. So back to what we've done. So if I currently if I do this, it's still clickable, right? Our logic doesn't reflect. So what we need to do is to go and refresh to make our logic work. So right now, if I pause the game, once I pause the game, I cannot click the game again. It's paused and just remains paused. So that means there's no cheating because currently there's room for you cheating the system currently. So if I click on this now, it keeps working. If I click on this, nothing happens. Nothing happens. But if I proceed, then this is a very fun game to play. Like this is a literal fun game that you can play. And I'm already thinking of how I can play this even on the web too. So if you want to, feel free to do it. But then this is something that you can implement on the web. Just spawn a lot of things and see who finishes it faster. It's a fun game and a relaxing one too. So yeah, go crazy. So yes, this is what we've done, and I think you guys have learned something from here. We have 33 seconds. So what happens? Let's see it to the end of it. So what happens when it is done? Based on the logic, it's going to go back to the menu automatically. There's no extra text. Remember, we are just doing something basic here. We're not implementing something extremely crazy or difficult. It's just basic, simple, straightforward. We are done. That's what we are trying to implement here currently. So we need to move on from this by doing this. So let's see, it's almost done. 3, 2, 1. Was I able to finish it? No, I wasn't. Yes, and that's exactly what happened. It took us back to the menu. Almost immediately finished implementing whatever it is. The countdown was done, right? It took us back to the menu. So that means all the logic is successfully implemented and everything works correctly. So everything is fine, works correctly, perfectly implemented. Kudos to AI. It is done. So, but we are not done with it. We have other things we can add to it. So, if you guys have like any other suggestions, you can just drop it and then I'm going to implement it. But currently, this works and it works perfectly well. So, you can see right now that all of this works and we've successfully implemented a game, which is almost 1,000 lines now, that allows us to be able to play a game. Okay, it's not almost 1,000 lines because I can remove the previous implementation there, that black screen. So we can do two things. We can do it in such a way that when it is done, we can implement the black screen that displays that game complete and stuff, but that's not what we are trying to do. So what I want us to do, I would like us to implement to be the aspect whereby you can overlay text on another text, right? But like I said, we are going to start with something else totally in our next session, in the next episode of this series. And what we are going to touch on is the breakouts to understand collision, first of all. Excuse me, to understand collision. And when we talk about the collision now, we will see how it works because we've not talked about collision yet, but we can see the spawning already here. Look out. So collision detection is already like an instance here. We can see there's a wall. Now the wall is just what in this case, just a sprite, right? From color that was defined, we transform it and all of those things. Then defining all of these things you see here, all of those balls that was at the top, they are just basically shape that was defined. And you can see how they were done. If you go through the code, you see a loop that loop through them. That's what I will have done. So that's what I expect. Yeah, exactly. A loop to display the brick. So by doing that, the paddle movement is another thing. Paddle itself should be a a mesh in this case, if I'm not mistaken, be a rectangle that was defined. Let's look for where paddle is here. Like I said, we'll touch all of these things and try to like improve on it. Maybe our major focus for tomorrow. Um, but yeah, this is basically now. This is if you have been following this series from the first part of this. I believe by now you should be confident enough to look at this code base or any Bevy code base and say, "Oh, I understand what is going on, and I can make changes. You can make edits because in this case, this day and age, you don't need to write everything from scratch. You can pick whatever you see that is available to pick, which is free to use. Don't use something that is not free to use. And pick it and try to implement it or make modifications, just like you have seen us do all through the course of this series, right? So definitely we can do all of this. You can see their gizmos, their math. I want us to touch on this smooth follow also. I think I showed it here. So smooth follow, you can see it literally implements two objects in 3D space that moves on their own, but with tracking. So in this case now, the second object tracks the first one and moves and follows it. So there are a lot of things you can implement with this. So let's say you have two entities in your game, right? You have the main all these so you can play all of these games that always have a pet. The pet will always follow you everywhere you go, all of these kind of things. Yeah, this is a perfect example. You don't control the pet just follows you wherever you go, knowing fully well that you, what you're supposed to do. So in this case, that is exactly what is happening. So that's I call that tracking, right? Because you're literally tracking the main object. So in this case, that's what you're doing. So the movement of the follower in this case just basically follows or tracks the first one. So you can see there's something called follow in here. Follow is just a transform. It's just a transformation that's happening. So it's transformed with respect. So calling smudge is what moves the following space smoothly towards the target. Do you understand? So basically, this is what is handling that. But we will talk about it tomorrow because it's important. Right now, we are implementing a simple game of um, let me say of explosion, right? Of exploding circles, of exploding game screens, right? But tomorrow we are going to be working with another game, follow in this case. So we are going to be looking at the breakouts a bit more. Another thing I would like us to touch on, which if you have the time also you can pick on your own because we might not be implementing them, is the sprite speaking, right? This is also important. Picking of sprites is also important. Demonstrate picking sprites and sprite atlases, but like I said, might not be touching on that for the course of this. But there are a lot more things I would like us to look at, like extended materials, shaders. We've not talked of shaders or vertexes. Oh, there's a lot of things in game development, but then we are not trying to touch on everything, right? No, we are not trying to touch on everything, just basic ones, many some of them. So what else? Let's look. We're almost done. We're almost done. Before we now go to real stuffs that we can also use. Okay, so we can steal something from here. We can steal the button shadow from here to implement actual visible, more beautiful buttons. But these are just for UI. But yeah, we don't need this too. We can implement a lot more stuffs. There are gradients, there are clip margins, there are a lot more things. But then you can see what we've done today, and I believe that helps to understand the power of Bevy. There's a lot of things you can do with it, all written in Rust. All in Rust. You can really write everything you want to do, implement it in Rust, and it works. Now, imagine using this for your game. Let me show you guys this. This. Now, this is a very cool button that you can use for your game, even though it's not an actual game. But think about it, you can use this for your game and it works. It makes a lot of sense because you can use this for your game and it's perfect, right? It has this game vibe to the button, and you can control the state, overstate and not overstate. You can use it to display everything in your button. So these are things you can copy this and tweak it to become better. You don't need to start from scratch yourself implementing, except if what you are looking for doesn't exist. Then you can do it yourself. But in this case, you don't need to, like literally not need to. So then you see another example of what we can do is context menu, cool down. Then we can create a solid color window. We can implement power settings, right? To reduce power use for Bevy application. Now, these are things you can implement. Like when you implement game settings, we can add all of this together to make it work. Screenshots, we can implement that, window resizing. And this is the end of the examples that exist. But there are still more things we can do. There are still a lot more things. We can still go to the Bevy asset and we can pick a lot of things from there. Now, from the Bevy asset, there are a lot of things you can use. You can see this official Bevy example, understanding dynamic queries in Bevy, choosing your these are just basically working with shaders. This is a lot of things. A walkthrough of Bevy 0.1 rendering. This is where you deal with rendering itself, talking about how it's done, right? These are just resources, like basic resources you can use, or you can use for someone else's resources. This is another tutorial you can learn. Learn Bevy example one. You can see another series. So you can always pick up this series too if you have questions. Someone has already done this and they've done a good job here implementing how Bevy works, right? So there are other things you can do here too. Making a chest clone in Bevy. You can pick that as a very, you can pick it as anything. You can make literally just make use of it as a challenge and then you can use it. Making a P2P web game with rollback, you can use this also. And what does this look like? This basically is something like this player to player game where you are playing with someone. You can see player one, player two. Let me zoom in to this to see. You can see player one, player two. Person uses keys. This is using joystick, and you can see there's a game movement and collision and other things that you can see. The walls are 10. Literally everything that happens here. So this is another game that someone wrote and it showed how to implement it. Basically, on um even on the web too. So you can use that also. You can run it on the web and you can play it because that's the only way you can play with someone else. And you can see that this works, right? Literally. So what the person did first of all was to create a window, right? Create it as a web implementation, right? So that you can play it on the web. So that's what the person did. So the person also implemented cargo watch. Cargo watch is that implementation that allows us to run it as auto reload without needing to rebuild every single time. I know we've not done that. Probably tomorrow I will install it. I just wanted you guys to understand what happens. So the we are building a web game, but not a native one. So we needed to install certain things. The Wasim runner, server runner was implemented first of all. So all of these things we can check it out when we are done, or we need to complete what we are working with first of all. Then we talk more on all of this. There are a lot of assets here. You can see them. You can see how long it is. You can see literally we've not gone anywhere here on this page. There's a lot of things. You can see the Bevy scroller, which allows you to create parallax world, right? Literally with like moons and stuff. So these are very good resources you can pick from also. We can use them. You can see different things we can use. Bevy lights in 2D, right? The tile sets which you can create, the pixels, the firefly, tiling background, sprite fusion, parallax. See, this is a complete game, right? LTDK plugin. This is a parallax, and that parallax example implementation. What again? XML, right? Particle systems for lighting and other things. This is water in Bevy. Now it doesn't have this high end view, yeah, but you understand the point. It's still cool seeing this with all the movement and all of those things. These are 3D. Now all we've checked here are just 2D. Now coming to 3D, you can see the world that we are seeing. And you can see the world being rendered on screen as it moves closer to it. You can see all of these implementations. You can see the trench room. You can see all of this. There are a lot of things you can implement here, like literally a lot of things. See this. Now, even using AI, right? Raw spot of recast, the industry standard navigation mesh generator. So this is you can see that there's a lot of things you can also do there. So everybody uses it. So you have the liberty to also use it for what you do. But this is just an AI engine, right? But that actually works with Boeing Bevy too. So it says this is an economic and correct utility AI powered by ACS Observer. So all of these things are possible for you to use. This is an animation tool similar to what we talked about 2 days ago in part 2 of the series. Sprite sheet animation, right? Different things here that we can talk about, even text animation, asset generation. Now you can see literally all of this. So this is another resource you guys can check out if you are interested, right? On how Bevy works, the ACS system, and all of these things. So I hope this helps too. I've done a bit more breakdown, like deep dive on this, but you can pick this for other stuff if you need it. So that's that. And another thing is you can just go through all of this, right? There are a lot of things that you can need or you can pick from here if you are trying to work on more stuffs. So yeah, basically this is it. There are audio backends, camera systems, Bevy third person camera. You can see the third person camera here. Like this is how you can implement something like that. Then you can see RTS camera, blending cameras, camera config, different implementations. You can just go through to see how these guys do it too. So you don't need to reinvent the wheel. They've already handled some of it for you. and then implementing custom cursors also that you can use. So yeah, this is there's a lot of things. Then we have things like physics. We've not even got into the physics. You can see the shaders also working with shaders, working with all of those cool things in actual game development or game engines. So we have that persistence networking. We have the impute this, we have physics. Let's check the physics where you can handle things like this, throw stuffs. You can see this. So I think you can pick this first person controller plugin. This is also cool. You can pick this avian physics. There's a lot of avian stuff here, so you can actually check that out and make use of it. So these are cool stuffs you can do. This physics basically is what deals with every other thing you do on any game that makes sense these days. So yeah, that's basically it. So I hope you guys have learned something from here also, and my screen is gone again. So everything I've been showing you guys, if you've not been seeing it, so sorry about today's recording. So sorry about today's recording. Super annoying. Ah, Jesus. Okay, so this is my asset again, right? So I'm just showing you guys where you can pick this. So you can just go to the um Bevy page. You will see this asset here. Once you click on asset, you have access to all of those things, right? There are shapes, there are cool stuff that people have done also that you can also make use of. You can see this foxtrot using the fox we used initially, and then you can see this as world with houses and grasses. Literally, just a lot of things you can use here. And see an example of the play quiz settings quiz we did. A Bevy template optimized for game jams. Do you see it now? So this literally just makes sense. You can see this also 3D RPG game template. So there are a lot of things you can pick from here for your own use case. So I hope you guys have learned something from here, and thank you so much, guys, for watching. Really appreciate you guys today for coming and sticking around to the end of this um, part 5 of the series of learning Bevy, learning Rust by building a game in Bevy. So, and I hope this has helped taught something. But just to do a recap of what we've done, this is basically what we built today. We implemented this, and then when you click on the new game, it shows you this. So all we did was just to combine two separate games into one that is controlled by a menu and that has a timer that actually counts down. And then when you are done, also it tells you when you are done with when you are done when the timer is complete or when the timer is done or finished, it takes you back to the menu automatically, right? So this is basically what we've been able to cover today. Hope you guys enjoyed what we taught today. Hope you guys learned something, and thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this. See you guys in part 6, where we are going to be covering collisions and other cool stuff as well. So thanks guys for watching. Peace out. I'm sorry once again about the mistakes and the complete chaos that happened with my screen today. Stream